Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Jack Ryan, Season 4, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off in Croatia. Obviously, the squad's in Croatia because they're trying to head to the black market, and they go to, because they're after a guy named Alomsky, and, someone that Mike knows can connect them to Alonsky ended up not being the person he thought, because he went to someone who runs kind of like, it's like, I love Domingo being like, I thought you said this was a hotel. He's like, it is. And Domingo's like, mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, it's just, it's kind of a hotel. And it's like, oh, welcome back. And Mike's like, yes, I've been here before. I told you things were pretty rough when I kind of went off the deep end a little bit when I got fired from the CIA. But him and the person who runs the place, like, they have a good enough relationship. And she ended up referencing, like, right, you want to get into, like, Alinsky's, like, black market and all that, you need an invite. And all her girls are invited, but one person in particular is invited. And it's like, oh, it's someone that you know, like, kind of your angry friend. He's been at I forgot, she's like your weird friend. He's been, like, hiding out at the harbor for, like, the past 2 weeks. I immediately was like, it's not going to be Tony, especially when Mike was like, yeah, it's going to be someone you know too, which I'm like, at first I was like, Mike, in which I had to correct myself in my thinking, because I was like, and now in retrospect, because I was thinking like, oh, they're going to make Tony pop up one more time, but I was like, no, because to be fair, he doesn't really know Mike, does he? I don't think Mike didn't interact with Tony last season at all. I don't think so, because that was mainly, was Mike involved in it at all? I don't remember off the top of my head now. I don't remember if Mike knows Tony or not, because obviously Mike didn't show up until season 2, and the introduction to Tony was back in season 1. I don't remember if Mike knows Tony, but either way, it's kind of a moot. Like I said, it's kind of a moot point because it ended up being Levin. I was like, interesting. Speaking of last season, I was like, that's interesting. And obviously, as a CIA asset, that's the reason why he's not currently rotting away after everything. He's like, yeah, I got into arms deal business, but he's come into like the making dreams come true type of business. That's what this whole marketplace is supposed to be about. It's like, right, selling sex and stuff like that. And Domingo does not beat around the bush. I love how just Jack and Mike just sit back and let him do his thing. He's like, cool, put up, I guess, like, had the blade at one of his arteries. Like, cool, 1 minute. He's like, 1 minute? It's like, yeah, you will die in 1 minute if you don't give us the information we need. So Levin ended up cracking, and it's like, fine. Like, he basically, it's like, right, he sells dreams, he sells sex. That's what this is all about. So sadly, they don't know that there's been a shift in plans. Chaufa isn't the one going to Croatia for the market. It's actually Tinton, but we'll get into all of that later. But it does put a wrench in their plans, because it's like, right, I mean, especially because, like I said, I'm blanking on the woman's name because Mike likes her, and I even love Domingo being like, oh yeah, is he doing this because he's hoping to get like a lucky night on the town or something? And it's like, yeah, and Domingo being like, I like him, and it's like, he likes you too, and that does not bring me any comfort knowing that you two kind of hit it off like that. But yeah, their whole plan to sneak in, it worked and everything with Levin, but I love that the entire time he's like, we're gonna die. But what's-her-face ends up, like, helping them because she wants this to be her out. And she says this line to Jack, because Jack's like, why would you risk it all, like, for it, like, helping us? And for her, it's like, because of men like Alonsky, women like me don't live long lives, and I plan to be different. And I interpret that as, yeah, you get sold into sex trafficking and you don't get to live a long life. You die pretty young because you get used up and drugged up, and eventually, like, when you served your purpose, like, either you end up dying because of just that world you're in, or they end up killing you, or they sell you to someone who, I interpret it that way. So for her, it's like, I want to be able to disappear with me and my girls, all of us. And so Jack helps her, like, right, gave her insurances of like, right, you're going to be able to disappear, go wherever you need to take you and your girls, and you get to disappear from all of this. So, but like I said, it completely screws up their plans that it's Tinton here instead. And so there's devices being bought, specifically 5. And it's like, Alinsky was like, yeah, they would change the word. So it definitely seems like bombs, but maybe like very coordinated bombs. It seems like that'd be the easy solution. And maybe that's all there is, but it feels like there would be more to it, but I guess it ties into what the whole thing is, the whole reason why you wanted the cartel and the Silver Lotus Triad to come together anyway, is just like the major criminal like cabal that would be, created, of course you would like be able to kind of have those resources and be able to kind of like gift out stuff like this. So kind of makes sense in the long run. So a bomb might just be all it is, but they're very high tech bombs that they can only be triggered by the people who are like designated. Like, oh, you need to include your thumbprint, and it can only be activated by who's ever thumbprint's there. So you can delegate it to like, oh, here's your first lieutenant. You want to make sure he has access to one, so on and so forth. There's a lot more, but Alinsky only bought 5 of them because he was probably planning on like selling those on the market and like making an even bigger profit in the long run. So, which we did see the market. We see weapons, we see like women, and it's just like, yeah, the place is like unnerving and disgusting. It's like, yeah, this is like some deep like it probably goes beyond even the black market in that regard and capacity. But Mike had to interrupt things just to kind of buy them enough time so that they couldn't leave with the devices, so things kind of pop off. Luckily, Domingo went as he said, Christmas shopping and pulled out like the grenade launcher or whatever, which came in handy. I was like, when he was like, I'll be right back, Jack's like, you'll be right back. I'm like, where the hell are you going? I thought he was going to deal with like the 10 ton of it all, but it's like, no, he went to get some heavier armament. I guess because to get to that room, they had to walk past those guns, so he knew where they were. So it's like, oh, let me go back and get locked and loaded, so. But I thought it was interesting, too, when Alinsky was, like, threatening Levin, being like, yeah, I know you'll be dead within a week. You and your family, I know where you live. Like, nothing's going to stop me. And Mike just, like, pops him. And just, once again, no one says anyone. Someone's like, Jesus, Mike. But it's like, yeah, regardless of it all, it's like, right, I'm not going to let you, like, I'm making a promise to Levin that all of us are going to make it out of this alive. So, yeah, he's the only one that knows Levin's, I mean, everyone else that's there is already dead, and no one knows enough about Levin to come after him and his family. The only person who would is Alinsky, because they're tight, like, they're associated enough he would know, and he has the resources, but without the head of the whole thing. I mean, I'm sure that puts a damper on the marketplace, too. I mean, granted, I'm sure someone else will pop up to fill that void, but it's like a double thing of like, right, I'm protecting Levin, but also I'm helping shut this place down. I mean, at least now this is cutting off any future access that the Silver Lotus Triad would potentially have to it as any criminal organization. Like I said, I don't know if it completely shuts it down, but it definitely put a major damper in it, and they walked away. I don't know if they got one suitcase that had one. So I think that was probably it. It was only because I think in my head I was like, oh, expecting all 5 to be there. It's like, no, it's just a test run of like, hey, here's the device, letting you see what it is. But you ordered 5 of them, and that's all you're getting because that's what you paid for. But we only brought 1. So I'm about to say, like, did the other 4 get away? It's like, no, it's just they still have the other 4. They just hadn't delivered them to there. It's just kind of like a show of like, yeah, this is what it is and what it looks like. And he's the only one. Him and the Silver Lotus are the only ones, and the higher-ups are the only ones who really, really know what this is all about. So, trying to figure that out. On the other side of things, kind of about the 10 ton of it all, he got sent to Croatia instead, but then it was Chalfa who was sent to Geneva, and you're like, that does seem like, why? I was like, but if they were onto him, why would they send him to Geneva? Like, they wouldn't be. So, it seems like they are willing, the higher-ups are willing to accept, okay, it was your brother-in-law, Soe, that, who was, like, the mole and everything like that, so. But we end up finding out it's Zayara, and I was like, oh, I literally said it last episode. I was like, the fact that she just happens to mention Myanmar Malai, and that just happens to be the major player in all of this season, like, that just seemed too coincidental. So for her to be like, Myanmar, I was like, is she, like, involved in it? Like I said, like, her and Ade were, like, on my, I'm keeping an eye on you list. I didn't think too much of Zayara until she mentioned Myanmar to Kathy last episode. That's when I was like, that's maybe it's just coincidental, but it just felt too coincidental with me, like I said, Myanmar being like at the heart of a lot of this season. So, and that's also the thing about Ade. It's like, yeah, you're connected to this Lagos situation. You're not directly, but like Wright is kind of getting you involved in that, and it's just like, it just feels too coincidental, because that's still the biggest question mark of, well, who had, I mean, cause we're getting associated with some of the major players, but we still don't know everyone's involvement, you know, in all of it. So, but yeah, Ziara, she's the one that personally asked for Chalfa because of what he's accomplished, because she knows, like, Tinton is like, right, he's an old man who's visionless, who parades around as a visionary, and she has a lot more in common with Chalfa. We both came up from nothing and built what we are here today. What she's trying to gain in the long run, I don't know, but like because she's been partnered with the Silver Triads for a while now, so I guess maybe she's been the connective thread between like Miller and obviously the cartel and everything. So, but she brought Chalfa here because she wants the operation to be his, which is so interesting because Tintin, they had that whole back and forth about how they don't work for each other. It's like, well, now Tintin works for you because the entire operation is yours, which is like, it's not a yay moment because it's like, crap, I was trying to get me and my family out of this, and I can't do that now when I'm literally leading the organization because now all eyes are on me. I can't just disappear easy. It's when you're middle management like he was, like you're still pretty high up in the ranks of like the organization, but you're still middle management. You could disappear without too much fuss. When you're running things, it's like, that's impossible. I don't think that's going to, well, with the way the episode plays out, it definitely seems like it hasn't changed his mind. He still wants out. It just made it harder. Granted, now he's got a face associated with some of the higher ups that he was working on, some of the higher up people involved in all of this. So, like I said, it's definitely going to be interesting because I figured that's because like I had brought it up in the last episode, Kathy's story in season 1 tied into like the Suleiman of it all. Like ultimately there ended up being a connected thread in that capacity. And I figured with the Myanmar mentioning, I was like, Kathy's going to be drawn into this as well. So, which her and Jack did talk a little bit this episode, like through text. So I'm curious to see what happens on that front. Domingo did send him the picture of saying like, oh, see you soon. And it was a picture of, Olinsky dead. And it's like, okay, so if he's dead, it's like, right, that could, and you know, Chalfa playing his part being like, yeah, our asset didn't know he was working for us. And it's like, well, now he does. And that means he's going to be coming after us. So now they're going to try and how ZR is going to really respond to that. It's going to be interesting. I can only assume like the person Walters is getting orders from is potentially her, maybe someone else. I feel like it's probably got to be someone on the Senate side of things too, just because like you know all these like the Senate stuff, the Lagos stuff, the Mexico and the Myanmar stuff we know are all connected. But I feel like that Senate stuff's got to connect in some capacity because like all these storylines are going to end up ultimately converging in some shape or form, especially with that particular senator kind of jumping, like, I don't know, he's jumping down Wright's throat, and Ade being a little supportive of like, right, his way of saying things is very coarse, but you should listen to him. I think, was it Senator Henderson or whatever, like, I don't remember his name now. But yeah, I forgot to talk about it, but I was like, right, that actor, I know him from the HBO show Outsiders. Was it Outsiders or The? I think it was The Outsiders. Based on the Stephen King novel, but tangents and all that aside. Speaking of the Senate side of things, obviously touching on it, Wright ended up sitting down with the senators about, you know, everything. It's kind of, it's like, right, you're, once again, she's acting director. She hasn't officially got the job. They're the ones that kind of review everything and ultimately determine and vote whether or not she gets the job. But the thing is, like, hey, we believe you're going to do good, but the fact is you're too much like Jack. But she's like, in my world, that's a compliment. It's like, yeah, but we're not talking about your world. We're talking about mine. The fact is our constituent doesn't like the ideas of the CIA being out there, you know, literally turning countries upside down, but like changing the world or getting too involved internationally in foreign affairs, considering there's so much stuff domestically we need to focus on. So it's like, right, you don't want to be tied to Jack and kind of being like the out there doing stuff type of person. It's like you want to focus on here at home, you know, someone of your spirit. It's like, right, why this job would matter and stuff, but you don't want that spirit of yours to kind of override the good that you can do. And the other senator is like, right, I was here to back you because not everyone leans the way he does, but also quite a few people. I think she may have even said most of them do. So she wanted to kind of have her like support in all of this. She wanted to give Wright her support, and she went to Ade about it. And Ade's like, right, Jack is, especially because he stepped down as deputy director, which does work in her favor, but it's like, right, if she goes out there doing anything tied to Jack, is going to blow back on her, especially because like her confirmation is in like 3 days, so it's like she has to play the political game because like they will turn against her if she like sides with any operations Jack's doing. So there's supposed to be a united front, and even she was kind of making it clear like I can't really, but he's like, no, I recognize your hands are tied, I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and I know you won't be able to support me, but I know you also will support me. So when Greer, which we'll get to his side of things, brings up his and it's like, but for her it's like she can't really do anything, and it's just like Greer, kind of snaps at her, but goes like, right, I'm sorry. I know you got to play the game. All I got to say is you got to think about it, because what Jack is doing, it is like its own, like if he can get the Chalfa, it could end up connecting everything, which I do believe everything is connected. Once again, that typically ends up being how everything plays out. I don't think there's ever been a situation where none of the storylines ever connect to the overarching plot in any shape or form. Like, I think they're all pieces to the same puzzle. Like I said, that's why I feel like that Senate stuff feels so, I don't know, like either the person that's the most kind of against her, that dude, he might be the person, or it might actually be the woman that's so on her side. Like I said, maybe even Ade, I don't know. Because obviously things have kind of been quelled in Lagos for now because Okoli and Imon, the warlord, they come to an agreement. So like they're kind of like, there's a peace right now as they're trying to figure out once again who's actually responsible for killing President Nudo. So then on the other side of things, we had Patrick and Greer, where they are looking into some of these other shell companies that are involved. They found one that might connect. It seemed there's no like connective through line. At the very least, it didn't seem like there was one between that and the shell company Miller had made for the purposes of Operation Pluto. But they tracked down a name on a corporation and his kid, that was Dominic Johnson, I believe, and went to go see him. And his mom was like, "Oh, he's gone." So I was like, "Is he dead?" I didn't know if that was like, "Oh, he's dead" or he's locked up. But then like, he went to the hospital where he was. The kid's been in a coma for like 3 years because of like a football accident. I'm sure it struck a nerve with him because it's like, well, for one, we know his son plays football and Dominic's around the same age as his son. So you could tell it cut deep when Greer saw him. But the problem is Walters was following him and knew exactly where he was. And it's like, he got to go ahead to go after Greer. So like, it's like, right, gave him a warning because he's high enough position that it's like, right, we don't want to do anything unless we actually have to. I'm sure they probably would have made it seem like it was just some like mugging or something like that. I mean, to be fair, they disguised Miller's death as a suicide. So if it wasn't for them showing up in time, which they also were in the know, in episode 2 about everything. So, it wouldn't have mattered if it's just like, oh, suspicious suicide. They would have seen it for what it was, regardless of Domingo saying it anyway. They would have inspected the crime and just, hey, I was literally with the guy not too long ago. There's no way but obviously it works to their benefit because that way they don't have to worry about all the stuff about Miller coming publicly now with everything that, Wright's dealing with her confirmation and everything. So it bought them time on that front, but everyone in the know knows about it, so. But yeah, Home Dude tried to get Greer. I love Greer taking the knife and slicing at his ankle, so it's like, yeah. Probably didn't cut any, like, tendons or anything like that, but probably did enough to like slow him down. And it's like he kind of looked upset that he let Greer get away. It's like, cool, but you underestimated Jim. But Jim's like, right, that guy had a very tactical knife. He had to be someone from the military. So it's like, right, some of his blood is on that knife. So let's trace it and connect him to who he is. So it is a thing of someone in DC has got to be connected to all this, considering like this guy's ex-military and stuff like that. Once again, the tissue's there, there's threads there. They just ultimately have to rely on Jack on his side of things, getting Chalfa to ultimately connect a lot of the players and all of this. So, which is also interesting too, considering like it's not only Kathy who had that connection to Ziara, like even I mean, also realize who was talking to Ziara at that party, Ade. So it's like, and those end up being people that are connected to Right, which I don't know if those will blow back on her, especially if she's going to Ade for like advice and stuff. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Obviously, next 2 episodes, the final episodes of the show. So I'm so curious to see where all this ends up taking us next and how ultimately this all comes to an end next week. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.